discuss the best stories with the best minds in the community. I'm your host, Nufatora, and on this episode, I'll be discussing Trials of Befriending a Trickster with the writer, Dancing Trickster. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to be able to talk to somebody who created such a wildly creative story.
See, I don't know if it's wildly creative. I always felt it was a cop out because I just made a story where literally anything could happen. There's no rules, like I could do anything.
That's but the way you work on it, the way you use that to strengthen the story, I think is really what makes it so creative. Because you could just cop out. It could be a cop out. You just all the problems are like yes, some of the things are like they're just magicked away, but that's kind of the beauty of it. And I do want to get into that a little bit later on. I have a more fleshed out thought for it, but to start out, I have a summary. So, an aspiring journalist accidentally frees a trickster goddess and changes the course of her life forever. One that now includes epic battles against other godly figures, friendships betrayed and formed, and of course, lots and lots of wedgies. And
You should see that. That's like I might steal that and I just might put that on the bottom of like all the all the different parts just because like that's way better than how I would have described it.
that's I've had a couple people tell me that now, and you're perfectly welcome to take it. It's uh, I feel like what I try to do with those summaries is create a sort of like the excerpt on the back cover if it were a novel to hook readers, and I think I'm glad you like it.
You have me hooked and I'm like, I wrote it. I know what happened. I'm like, hold on, maybe I need to reopen this.
Oh, that's awesome. And so you first posted the story on August 8th, 2018. Currently on Lucky Fetish, it has over 12,000 views, and that makes it the most recent story on the forum to get over 10,000 views. And collectively on DeviantArt, it has over 172,000 views, which is
Wow.
ridiculous.
I did look it up because I knew this would be the topic, so I was like looking it up because I haven't actually like I use DeviantArt still to post things, but like I haven't looked at those individual parts as often. And then I'm looking at it just like, wow, a lot of people favorite some of these, a lot of I was like, oh wow, he's got some heavy numbers.
Yeah, it's really impressive, and but it's really no surprise to me why when you look at what's there. I mean,
It's it's one of those I have conflicted feelings about it because it's like
really,
it's the first piece I ever wrote for for the community. And like I've written non stuff for the community, like that's like literally that. I think that's half the reason why I do this is because like goal is to become a writer. So it's just like if I'm writing anything, it's positive. So even if it's stuff for the community, which is like that'll never be published in a traditional sense, but it's still practice. But
absolutely.
like since it was like the first thing I really wrote that had like the first thing I wrote that was like put out there for regular consumption,
Mhm.
I feel like there are parts where I'm like, oh, that turned out way better than I thought. And then there are parts where I'm just like, oh, I should just take this down and redo this. This is a rough one.
Yeah, but I think that's important as a writer to be able to critique your own work in a
Mm.
well-rounded way, keeping in mind not just where you can improve, but also seeing what you've done really well so that you can work that into your later writings. I think that's something that not many people do. I think it's very important to be able to recognize your own strengths.
Yeah, I would say that one definitely helped me with like the next like big series I did, Inspiration. Like I feel like there's a lot of like good. The biggest thing, and I don't know how other people do this, and maybe it's just me, is like consistent posting. I always felt
Oh,
bad where I'm just like, it's been a couple months and I got no, it's just one of those sometimes inspiration hits you, and that's the problem with ongoing series. So I've been trying to do that where I'm just like, I'm just gonna have it all written before I post it, and then I'll just push it out there slowly. And even then,
hmm
it's like inspiration. I was doing that and I was doing good, and then halfway through it was just like. oh, I got nothing and this part's not ready and my computer's acting up. Like, oh no.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking to the person that started a story in 2016 and then didn't post anything for it until 4 years later. So I think I understand where you're coming from with that.
Yeah.
I think that is definitely something that plagues a lot of writers, um, just trying to keep that motivation up. And I'm curious how you were able to keep going with the story and see it through to where you took it.
It's one of those that I feel like I had like I don't know. Maybe it's different for I think it's probably different for everyone, but for me at least, it was one of those where I'm like, oh, I have like the first chunk because like I view like that because I believe I'm pretty sure it's 30 even episodes, chapters, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I had it broken down into like 10, 5, 5, 10 story arc, like
Yep.
pieces to be a story arc. And like the first 10 was like, I have this from start to finish. I know what I want to do. I'm ready here. And then I was like, well, that's not a good ending point. And then like it just became like, I don't know, just like not random, but just almost like, okay, what can I do from here? Which is
Mm-hmm.
the other problem I really like I had, especially towards the end of just like once you do everything, what do you do? Like, there's literally a time travel segment. There's, like not alternate realities, but there's, segment, other goddesses showing up. Like, there was so much where I'm just like, where do I go from here? Which is why, like, I don't know if you've seen it. Maybe some people listening have. I didn't see it at the time, but there was this show, Gravity Falls, on Cartoon Network, cartoon show, and it ends with this big event called Weird Mageddon. And I watched it years after I had written the finale for Trials of not the finale, the part 30, whatever it is. I'm not going to say it's officially done, just done for now. And I was literally just like, this is exactly what I wrote, where it's just like, just everything happens. It's the end of the
Mm-hmm.
world. Everything's going crazy. Everything's hitting the wall. And like, I don't know how I kept up the motivation because like I feel like some of those later chapters I did really like they it was start it was starting to get to me where I was like I'm kind of done with this story but I need to like wrap it up where sometimes it felt a little bit forced.
Hmm. Oh, that's really interesting. And I don't think that really comes across. I think that's
I'm
some.
sorry if I ramble too. Like I don't mean to ramble because I
Oh,
feel
it's
like
perfectly
you're
fine.
asking like these good questions and I'm just like, oh, I'll give you every thought like because
Yeah.
it's especially yeah the last couple chapters I'm definitely I don't think I'll ever be happy with.
Hmm.
Like, there's a couple in there where I was just like, I feel like I'm just killing time to get to the grand finale, which I feel is like not a way. Like, it's something that I feel like people should avoid in writing is to like, if you need to kill time to get to something, then you shouldn't have that chapter.
Hmm.
And that's what I kind of felt I did on parts of it. Like, I still think overall it's an enjoyable story. I definitely think the first, like, two-thirds holds up and then the last couple chapters I think I did were pretty good. It's just like there's that middle of the end where you're just like where I'm just like there's so much better I could have done here. Now
Hmm.
looking back on it, at the time I was like, this is a masterpiece. They're gonna put this, in a museum.
Yeah. I think that's also important is to reflect on what you've done already, see how you can improve. But it's just an interesting thing. I think ramble all you want. That's perfectly fine because there's so much insight that we can gain from what you have to say. It's a completely different perspective that people don't really hear from, um, and there's so much that is yet to be explored and understood about these different questions we have about writing in general and your piece and individual works by writers that I think there really isn't a sort of yes or no answer to any of it. I think it's whatever comes to mind. I think that really is what there's so much we can dissect from what writers have to say, and I think I'm this is why I want to do this kind of thing so I can put the spotlight on the writers, have them talk about their works and how they feel about the community, all that. Um,
it is a weird thing when you think about it because it's just like, all right, in theory, like no one in theory is going to make a career writing this kind of fiction, and like there's nothing
maybe.
wrong with that. Like it's a hobby, maybe it's one of those I can't say 100%, but it's just like there are some of us who have written enough and it's popular enough that you're almost like, I'm not saying that this could be, be sold in like a bookstore. I mean, in theory, anything could be sold at a bookstore, but like, you know what I mean? Where it's just like there are certain authors you see who are successful outside of
Hmm.
like fetish writing, and then you're like, well, they wrote one book and it's like okay at best, and then you look read like some of these intense like fictions that have been written, and it's like be like, wow, I have a lot of feelings about this, and it was like it's really all for like a kink or a fetish, and you're just like, oh wow, like these are really like interesting, and like there's so much more around it than just like the act itself. Like we've all seen those stories where it's just like literally a paragraph of like this character from this TV show or this actress is wearing this, and then this happens, and then you find these other ones where it's just like like Trials of Befriending for Trickster, like, or other ones like that where it's just like this is 40 parts, and it's
Hmm.
just like there's so much intrigue in how we're going through this, and like there's a mystery or there's a thing we have to solve.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's my goal is to change people's mindsets about this about fetish writing so that yes, we can make New York Times best-selling novels with this. Hans and Shadow, they wrote two novels, Stoling a Knife and Flame Over Darkness. They could absolutely be put in a bookstore. I
See,
think.
I feel like one day we will reach the point where like maybe not on like the overall, but like how they have like romance
Oh
sections
yeah.
of bookstores. Like I totally think one day you could see like more like fetish fiction, whatever you want to call it, in those sections because like
Yeah.
there are people who like I would love to have a book like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like especially for us in the community, I feel like all of us anytime it's in a book, it's in a movie, it's in a TV show, you sense it out and you remember
Oh yeah.
what thing it's in, where it's just
Yep.
like I could totally see that there are other people out there be like, oh, a whole book about that. Yes, like I could name like a few books where I'm just like, oh, it mentions like wedgies once, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I could totally see like we could turn this into maybe not like a whole book specifically about it, but you could combine a couple other like fetish things together and make a whole book.
Absolutely. I think that really is where it comes into the fetish itself, the wedgies being not the center focus. They we're all here for that, but what I think we stay for is the actual story and the characters, um,
Hmm.
and so the wedgies sort of take a back seat to the actual story, and so like if you took the wedgies out, it would still be an amazing story that we would love. Um,
I
but
think
yeah,
that's the major thing you can tell, like, is when it's someone who has like, and this isn't a knock against anyone who writes anything, but it is one of those where like there are certain stories that you'll see like on DeviantArt, on Lucky Fetish, on the boards that were before that, and what pad I think what pad is it or
yep,
whatever the or
Wattpad Experience Project.
writing.com,
Yep,
where like it's where it's just like it's a half a paragraph, and it's really just like what kind of underwear they're wearing and what kind of wedgie, and then that's it.
yep,
And and I know everyone has to start somewhere. I'm sure many of us at one point just had like one paragraph, and it was like, yeah, but it's you can tell where there's like a real like not disconnect, but just like okay, these are people who are just like looking for like a quick like oh I had this thought in my head, let me write it down so I can rethink about it versus like no, we're trying to craft a story with characters and plot and like yes, there's an overarching theme, but it's also like wedgies in our fiction is like lightsaber battles in Star Wars. It's just like it's gonna be there, it's gonna happen often, but it doesn't. There's not other stuff going on.
That's a that's a great comparison. I love that. Um,
Which is funny because I'm pretty sure I barely like I've been writing a Star Wars fiction, and I think there's barely any lightsaber battles. I'm like, I gotta write more of those in.
but yeah, I that's the stories like that. That's what I call jack off content. It's that you find it, you get off to it, and then you forget about it. Whereas
Hmm.
stories like, in my mind, Lucy and Daniela, YWNR, Trials of
Yes,
Befriending a Trickster, all of these overarch and well realized stories, they stick with you because once
you
like
come
what
back to them even if it is
exactly.
you're using it for that kind of material. You're
Yeah.
still coming back to it because like, oh, there was a really great scene in here. Like that's why there's certain ones like what's his name on Deviant? M Dodo has like a bunch of
Mhm.
superhero ones, and it's just
Yeah.
like, all right, superheroes are. I don't read comic books as much as like other people. I don't watch every comic book movie, but I'm just like, he's written the characters well enough, like very well, and it has things I enjoy. So I will go back to specific ones being like, this was great. I almost wish I could be like, can you put more of this out there?
Mhm.
Like, can you just do more of these?
Yeah. Yeah, it's we come for the wedgies, but we stay for the characters and the story.
Yes.
It's
I,
yeah.
I will say, because I've dabbled in this community long enough where I'm like, I almost appreciate that, like, for the longest time on like the older boards and even early days of Lucky Fetish, I forget what the board was before that one,
Wedgie
but
girls.
like there was, yes, and there were all these stories, and it'd be like 1 to 3 parts, one to
Mhm.
two parts, and it's promises like there's more coming, and then you'd never hear anything
Yep.
about it again. And now it feels like everyone who was writing, or at least on like that upper echelon of popular writers, are like, no, you're getting an ending and you're getting a fully flushed out story, whether it's
Yeah.
1 part, 5 parts, 30 parts, whatever. You're getting a full thing, and like I appreciate that the most because that was the most
Hmm.
disgruntling thing about like going to the forums and being like, oh, there's a new part to the story, great, and then like, or it's dead. Oh, it comes one more. Like it's been 6 months and they've added one new update, and now okay, now it's officially dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was always the killer. That's I think
Mhm.
half the reason why I started because I was just like, I'm so tired of like reading these really great stories that just don't have an ending, that don't have
Yes.
a. I'm not even saying it has to be a definitive endpoint where it's like you could never write about these characters again, but just like a conclusion to the story that we're telling. Like I know you guys talked about a couple episodes ago. Luckily Unlucky. I'm like,
Yep.
that was a fun story. I wish it had an ending. The remote
Yep.
was fun story and going places. Wish it had sore winter. Like there were all
Mhm.
of these that just kept going and like and they would hit good like amount of parts and you're
Mhm.
like, oh sweet, like someone and I understand it's again it's a problem that we all have is just like sometimes you're just not it's just not clicking for you and you got to take a break from it. But some of these, it was also very clear that just like it's been enough time. If it was ever going to click, or they would say something like "It's coming, don't worry, I'm working on it,"
Yeah.
but they would just never have anything.
Yeah, it's I called it this one time before. The lucky fetish is the place where stories go to die.
Pretty much.
But
Well,
I
now because it was going to die because I remember I think it was like one of the last parts of inspiration I posted where it had that glitch where like all the
yeah.
quotation marks were
Mhm.
messed up and I'm just like this is like it's unreadable and now
Yep.
somehow older stories so now it's just like even new stories come to die there.
Yep. Yeah. Although Sore Winner is one of the worst of them. I'm not having any because it was one more part and then it was done. It's
Yeah,
terrible.
that one really. See, I don't know what bothers me more, that where it's just like you're so close to the ending, or the ones where like the remote. I forget even what part it ended on, but I was like, oh, they're building up to something. Or Luckily
Mhm.
Unlucky, where you're like, oh, something big's gonna happen in like the next part, and then maybe we'll get two more, three more, or whatever. And then it just you never got to that next big part. And you're just like,
Mhm. Yeah.
man.
But we have what we have there for those stories is fantastic. So,
Exactly. That's
yeah.
that's the weird thing where it's like you're almost mad that like, oh, we can't have more, but it's just like well, at least we got something because like there's a universe where they never published this, and there was
Exactly.
never any of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And just the ripples that were caused by those stories wouldn't exist, and that's oh, that would be a horrible thing to see because there's so many great writers and stories would not have been put out.
There really is, and it's like almost surprising that because you like on paper you're just like, all right, there's people writing about fetish kinks, whatever, and you're like, well, they can't be that good, and then you read something and you're like, all right, this is pretty good. I paid for books that are way worse than this.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually invest and care about these characters or like Game of Thrones.
Yes,
I never bought the books for it. I was given the first book as a Christmas gift years ago. Tried getting into it multiple times. Tried to read it multiple times. Like every single chapter, 10, 15 new characters thrown in my face. No idea who any of them are. There's no time given to flesh any of them out. But
it does not get better.
then I get to some of these stories like Luckily Unlucky, like Auntie Cherry, Saseda, Hans Gutherson, all like these really fantastic writers, and I remember years later all of all of these characters. I remember all of their characters, and I care about them still, and they stick in my mind. And,
The one that gets me is I'm like, listen, I know he like don't get me wrong, it's a fine book, but it's not the world breaking. And then the guy made two bad books after that. But like Ready Player One got published
oh God,
and like
yeah.
made $1 billion and had a movie made about it, and I'm just like, man, if like I think someone asked me for it was two commissions and gave me like DeviantArt points, and I'm just like, I'm king of the world right now. King of the world. I got someone traded me something for this,
Hmm.
and someone thought my writing had enough value that they were willing to give me internet points that they bought with real money.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm I'm sure it's a very validating thing. It's got to be really nice to know that people care about not just your story and getting off to it, but caring about what you have to say, what you want to write. That's really cool.
Right. That's why, like the first couple days I post anything, because now I just post on DeviantArt because Lucky Fetish has all those problems, and
Yep.
it's one of those where I feel like yes, the board is still active, but only in certain sections of it. So it's just like the video section and like for some reason the art section. I feel like anytime I've gone there is just like the art section's always like got a new post and I'm all right. But like now I just post on DeviantArt and literally anytime I post anything I just check like the first day just like okay how many likes did it get? How many favorites? How many views? Like just seeing that number go up is just like it's like something in that like reward center brain of just
Hmm.
being like oh, vindication for what I wrote that it's not complete and utter crap.
Yeah. Yeah. So going back a little bit, you first posted on in 2018 around the middle of the year. Where were you in life at that point?
2018. I was like very on and off again in college. I forget I was whether I forget if I was whether at still at community college or if I was at like official. This is a 4 year school college. I believe I was finally at 4 year school college, and I think it was just one of those where I was like, I because I had been on this book like I assume many like you discover these things in like middle school, early high school. So like, and I know it's illegal, but like yes, I was a young teen who
Yep.
discovered my interests and clicked yes, I was over 18 to go visit the board. And I think it had just gotten to the point where I was just like, there's nothing on this board for me personally right now. That's like, I feel that's
Mm,
especially why I've started doing more of the, I guess, fan fictions, is because like, these are characters, like, it's easier with fan fictions because like, these are characters I want to see or a universe I want to see, and there's no one is writing what I want to see there.
yeah.
And I think, I forget what started the idea for the story, but I just vaguely remember having like if I'm gonna write something I'm gonna put out there, I didn't want to just because I felt there was a lot of other people doing just like very real world, but like real world, but also with that like oh my God you're getting a wedgie, but then oh you love it too,
Yep.
and I was like I don't want to just copy the mold. I was like. but I also felt I needed to give myself an out, which is why I'm like, oh, she's magic, like magic, and
Yeah.
anything can happen with magic. That's why literally like snap fingers and crazy things happen. Like
Yeah.
it's just that's all that was to give myself an out because I felt like I wasn't a strong enough writer to have like these deep character moments and then just go on to the next thing, which led
Hmm.
to its own series of problems where again, as I said earlier, it's just like once you do everything, where do you go from here?
Right.
Like once you have goddess on goddess battle with everything exploding and enemies from the past returning and oh my god what do you do, and that's why literally I feel like I almost copped it out where I'm just like, well, it's another sister.
Yeah. Yeah. That's even a problem that the like franchises like Marvel face is like once the stakes have like you start out, you're saving the city, now you're saving the world, now we're saving the galaxy, now we're saving the universe. Where do you go for like you feel like
Exactly.
you have to keep ramping up the excitement, but I feel like you can bring it back down um, by focusing on the characters and their interactions with each other. Um, if
I
you
think that's why I took a break from it in all honesty,
mm-hmm,
is that I'd hit such a high point of just because again at the end of the day, like part 30 or 31 whatever it happens to be was just a literal just like all out war, explosions,
yeah,
transformations, and I'm like everyone needs a breather. Like no one is going to be excited for like the grounded down to earth part, 31 or 32 where you're just like and now everything's back to normal for a day. Like I felt it needed a breather and like I don't because there were other ideas because originally I was trying to do like I know it was two sisters but I believe it's one of the earlier parts. I think I mentioned that it was like 11 pairs of twins from the goddess mother
mm-hmm,
to make these ones, and then it was literally going to be Lo and Jess working their way through all the other evil goddesses before going up against like the mother or the twin brother. I hadn't even decided at that point, but I was like, that's a lot, and you can't just keep ramping it up because there's literally nowhere to ramp up to
mm-hmm,
anymore.
yeah,
But I feel like if it's a long enough break, like if even if I don't write for it for like another few years, maybe I never like I felt it was a strong enough endpoint that if I'd never touch it again, I'm fine with that. But if I have ideas, I can come back to it.
mm-hmm,
But I feel like if I have ideas, it'd be better to do it now where people could maybe like get excited again because it's just like there hasn't been a new part in a while. I don't know the exact date. I feel it's been at least a year. It has to have been a year or so, I feel, but I've lost complete track of time. But I've hit, people can get excited again to be like, oh, it's coming back. Okay, well then if we start small on the coming back scale, we can then ramp up again, you know,
yeah,
as opposed to just being like, oh, we went big and now we're going little increments.
yeah. And it's interesting that you bring up like you don't really follow comic book, you don't really read comic books, um, but the whole it sort of has a very comic book tone going throughout, um, and like not like these crazy super gritty whatever all these storylines that have been coming out for a while, um, like people are dying and all that. It has like a light-hearted tone, and there's slapstick and comedy, and then it was
I
just
tried to put it in like a tone that was almost like honestly I guess like since I don't really read comics but I watch the cartoons where it's just like you'd watch these cartoons where it's just like these are characters that everyone relatively knows and everyone likes, and like yes they're superheroes and fighting evil things, but like there's no risk of death, but
right.
there's always like bad things and they're over,
Yeah,
that was the one thing where I was always like I never want to do like death or like extreme violence. Like those I feel just don't really have a place, at least in this subject. Like I feel it'd be very weird if it like that's why some of the stories like I don't want to say are turn off, but I remember there was like a couple that just made me like raise an eyebrow, being like, this is on like almost the graphic violence side that I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that really fits for what people are trying to look for here.
Yeah.
Like, it's always humorous, like, oh my God, they're getting a wedgie and struggling against it. But like, it's another one where it's just like, I don't know, like, even like I know I included in some of them, but I typically, it's not something I enjoy. It's just something that's like used as like an addition thing, like the swirly. Like sometimes people describe swirlies and it's just like someone could die from this in real life. Like I
Yeah.
don't want that. What people thinking about while they're reading my work is just being like, oh, someone could have died. Like this is very dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of there seems to be a lot of things that we put into our stories that we don't really think about how it would actually work. Um,
Yeah.
the so the last part of the story was posted on September 9th, 2020. So it's a little over 2
Oh,
years now. Um, I, the the tone and the way you wrote it definitely makes it feel like a spiritual successor to As You Wish by Jack 538, if you're familiar with that.
I is that the genie story?
Yes, yes.
I read parts of that. I don't remember if I finished it. I do appreciate because I remember enjoying that story a lot, so I
Hmm.
appreciate that. It's been a while since I've read it. I feel like that's another thing that I've gotten into, not read related, but like there's this whole list of like lost media out there, and I feel like we've lost so many great stories. And like that's when I remember reading. I'd be like, oh, I bet I would enjoy going back to read that. I have no idea where I would be able to find it. Like I don't know if it's on Lucky Fetish.
It is.
I don't know if it's on. Oh, it is.
Yep,
Is it in a readable form? Because I know
kind
like a
of.
bunch of older stories. Okay.
I guess it comes down to how much you're willing to tolerate. I'm willing to
Yeah,
tolerate quite a bit.
yeah, that's my problem is like I'd go back in there and I try and read and I'm just like, what does that symbol mean? Does that mean
Yep.
quotation mark or does that mean like it's an exclamation point?
Hmm.
Like I don't know what that glitch is, but if they could fix that, I feel that would save like a lot of people a lot of like headaches.
I doubt they will. And as I've kind of put together from what characters don't work and all that, it's not really a glitch. It's the style or format of the characters isn't accepted by the board for whatever reason. They have a bit like if you type out something and you have an apostrophe or quotation mark, or whatever the bad characters are, in like a Word document, and then you put it in Lucky Fetish, if you erase one of those apostrophes and you put a new one in while you're submitting it, it is a different style of apostrophe. So I don't know why they had to do it, but
That's
I
that's so weird. I remember
yeah.
also like I think it was like the last part of something I was posting where it just literally posted like one sentence and then it was done and it wouldn't post anymore and I literally had to comment on my own post being like, here's just a link to DeviantArt because it's not letting me post. Like here just there was so many problems. Like I enjoyed that board and like I was never really a DeviantArt guy until I started posting. Like I would go there occasionally and now I'm just like I can't go back unless
Hmm.
like if they fix those problems and like I'll go back there and look like I'll occasionally comment on stuff but like it's not my primary place now for
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
which is sad to say because like you go through like you it's almost like going through all these different iterations of these different websites and like you remember
Hmm.
this one closing and that one opening and all that and then it's just like well this one's dead and DeviantArt is the one that's sticking around.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I'm going through As You Wish, and it's actually there's nothing wrong with it. It wasn't affected,
Oh,
so that tells me that he wrote it in on Lucky Fetish as opposed to writing it in a document and then posting it over. So that's good.
see, that's the big problem is like because that would have annoyed me even more if like I posted it and like it just lost it
Uh huh.
and I hadn't written it in a document. Like now I just have
Yeah.
I have literally just like on my Word documents just like one that's just labeled personal, and then if even if you click on that, it just says that stuff. Then you have to click on that, and then it'll bring you to all my works and works in progress.
Yeah. Okay. What were your inspirations for writing the story and in general?
don't for writing in general, I just always enjoy writing. So like uh I guess this is the month to do it is this is National Novel Writing Month. And since I've been trying, like I enjoy writing in general, so I've literally been spending my entire month doing that, but not any fetish related. But I always viewed it as just like I want to be a writer. I've attempted like regular stuff, and I'm like, this is something like not regular, but you know what I mean. Like I don't
Yeah.
mean that to sound like derogatory, but like non fetish or kink related stuff. And I was just like, any practice is good practice.
Mm-hmm.
And in theory, I'll keep up with this more because like it'll have a audience already there, even if only like 10 people, even if I only see
Yeah.
10 views on it, it's 10 views. And if I can get 11 views on the next one, and then, they blew up instead, which is great. But I was always like, any practice is good practice. And even if I don't view it as practice, because, I don't know how do you, the only way to practice writing is writing. So that's why I'm
Yep.
like, even if I don't mentally think of it as practice, it technically is.
Hmm. Okay.
Inspiration wise, like I know some of this is the one reason why I don't want like people I know in regular life to know what I write is, besides the fact that like awkward conversations is like I tend to use like names from people in real life and I never want to
Okay.
have the question of just like why did you use that name? Like there's a couple
Right.
names I have like that come up again and again I feel and I'm just like yeah if that person ever found out I'd have to be like listen I didn't pick it like I think the name just works for the character it has nothing to do with you.
Well, do you have any? Are there any stories from the community that have stuck with you, or like ones that you feel like have influenced your work, or that you've been inspired to write because?
I definitely again like I think we like Luckily Unlucky I think was like really good and
Mm-hmm.
like that I don't know if they inspired me to write but they were just like these are good enough where I'm like I don't it feels like you could take this a little seriously when writing like Luckily
Yeah.
Unlucky Sore Winner The Remote I always enjoyed that M Dodo's work on DeviantArt where I'm always just like man this guy should just get hired writing comic books like forget this. You should go get paid because like I'd buy your comic book. Like
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. There's I think it was for the longest time, and I feel like a lot of people do this, and I know that sounds bad, but it took me a while before I was like recognizing names on the stories of like who wrote what. Where I could almost tell, being like, "Oh, this is awesome poster right here." Like that's I can see like the style, and I like it took
Mm-hmm.
me a while to get into those. So I've like read a bunch of different stuff. But I would say that those are like the ones that like I really view as like the top stuff, like the ones that really got me. Where I'm just like, oh, I gotta check like every other day to see if there's a new part or a new story or a new this. Like those were the big ones to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you're not alone in that view. Those are shared. Those stories are as super impactful and loved by so many people. There's something to it. Like they sort of opened the door and showed us what it was possible in this community, and what we've how we've expanded upon that is I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, there was a couple from back in the day where you would read it because I remember like I don't know if this was the early days or whatever this was, but like there would be I think it was like the hardest $26 and you're
Yep.
like this is a week. Oh, there was one that was like an older sister is like her. Oh, I don't remember what it was called, but
Blood
it was
money.
like it was arguably which one?
Blood money.
I don't know. Was that the one where it's the older sister and the younger sister's throwing a party? The older sister's a little bit
Oh
nerdy,
no.
but I forget what it was called, but it was
Hmm.
like to me it was like one of the better written things and it was still just like one of those looking back and I'm like there's one that I've been looking for forever. It was on the original Wedgie Girls and I've never seen it posted again. I don't know if it holds up, but it was one that I for some reason just remember reading over and over again. I believe it was called The Actress, and I have no idea if it holds up, but it was about I don't think any of the characters are named, but it was a actress who's like on like a Disney Channel like they're all above age, but she's on like she's guest. She's a background actor who's going to be on a Disney Channel show, and the character gets a wedgie, and she won't name the famous actress who's doing it, for like I think it was written in the first person, so it was like for legal reasons I won't reveal what actress, but the actress kept giving her worse and worse wedgies because they'd have to keep redoing the scene because they were like more than what they were even looking for.
Hmm.
And it was one of those stories that like that one for some reason I still think back to it and I'm like that might have maybe it was the first one I read, maybe I like just something about that one where I'm just like this for some reason in my head was like the story that like really resonated with me before like these other good ones came out. It was like the one that I was like that's the bar. If anybody can hit that bar, we'll be in good company.
Yeah.
But that was really the one that I don't know. Again, I don't know inspired just because like I don't know, like inspired's a hard word for me, even though I used it as a derivative of the word as a title for a story. But like I don't know if there's because I feel like inspired like I would have some aspect of, but like some aspect or some nod or something, and I really don't. I just have my own thing, and even though I've read these other stories and enjoyed them and like I might copy some of their writing styles. I don't necessarily make like nods to the story where like I'll have this character, say this thing that was in that other story that I really like. I don't know. Inspiration's hard for me.
Hmm. Well, I'm glad that you
Again, sorry to ramble.
I'm glad that you brought that story up because Hans Gutherson will hear it and he'll be able to tell you exactly where it is.
I hope so. I've looked for a while. I just hope it holds up because like
Yeah.
again, it was like when you read something as like a teenager and now you're older and reading it, and you're like, I really enjoyed this.
Mm-hmm.
If he can find that,
uh,
I would just be like starstruck because
is
I'm just like that. This has been like my like one of two white whales in the community.
mm-hmm.
The other is a video. It is a professional wrestling match. And like as a kid, loved wrestling, so I was like, oh my God! It was a house show where it's not a non-televised event, but someone captured on their video camera. It is a tag team match between I believe Tori Wilson and Maria versus Victoria and Candice Michelle. And it was one of those matches where the way to win is to strip your opponent of their clothes, but it's like halfway through the match and Maria just starts giving Victoria wedgies. And as everyone now knows, thanks to social media and everything, Victoria was like notorious for that apparently because there's all these other videos from other matches where it happens, but I could never find this one. It was like a MySpace video too, and I've never seen it again.
Hmm. Yeah, I've
If
never.
anyone has those, just please send them to me.
Yeah, I mean, I never really followed the wrestling videos, so that's that. I don't know the one, but I know uh Tori Banks. She was very notorious for it.
Yeah. And that was another weird that was I don't know if other people do this. That was the one I was like at the time I was like this is great. Is there was a bunch of like wrestling stories like and for some reason like at the time it was cool and now I'm just like these were real people that you're
Mm-hmm.
writing these very in-depth fictions about. I'm not sure how like that's what I tried to stay away from even when I did the time travel one. I picked people who didn't have like at least to my knowledge, relatives still alive or were alive themselves. Like I picked people who had been, dead for either a very long time or at least long enough because I don't like it feels weird to do that.
Hmm. That's
If
super
it was like
interesting.
someone alive or someone who's real, like they could be searching in the internet or their family member could be searching the internet and then they just find this story and it's just like I don't know. That felt weird to me, which is
Hmm.
why will never try and do a real person. Like I'll do fictional characters because they're fiction, but like a real person, I was just I don't know. I'm not gonna say like skeevy, but just like something about that where I'm like I wouldn't want someone doing that about me, so
Right.
I don't feel comfortable doing that about because you've seen the ones where it's just like different actresses and it's just like
Mm-hmm.
this one meets this actress and then they get into a wedgie fight and you're like all right. Luckily, those ones don't seem to, I don't want to say garner much notoriety because I feel like a lot of times it's literally just like name, underwear, wedgie, done.
Yep. That's pretty. That was yeah. That was really. I don't really see those much. I don't think I've seen any like that in recent times. I think it was. I think that was more just a product of the time period.
That was like a
And
late 2000s thing, I feel, where
yeah,
just like you would see these pop up from like 2009, and it's just like, oh wow, like this is what the community was into. Like it's like almost like trends within the community,
hmm,
where it's just like you'd have like a couple like just like oh, just real people in stories.
yeah, just people turning their internal desires at once into external media, regardless of the quality.
Yes.
I, so perhaps these, two things that stuck out as perhaps influences that might have been unintentional. Um, the doorknob wedgie reminds me of that Hispanic TV show. If you where the woman,
Yes,
yeah, she gets
yes,
her
yes,
thong. For anybody who
100%.
doesn't, for the
Oh,
where the woman gets her
1,000.
thong stuck on the doorknob, and she keeps trying to get it off, swinging the door back and forth. But when she makes out with the man, she ends up being pulled by him so hard it snaps off.
I was just thinking of like other writers, but yes, that's 100% where that came
Yeah.
from.
Okay.
That was like that was a great. That was like one of I feel
Oh,
the first
yeah.
scenes I remember.
Yeah.
Like I feel like now, like if you're a member of this community, you can almost name like every mention, every actual wedgie. But like that was I feel one of the first where like it was just popped up like every other day on the forums, being like, "Did anyone see this? Oh
Yeah.
my God!" Like I love that scene.
Yes.
I wish I knew what they were saying a little bit more. I wish I knew the context a little bit more, but even not knowing that, just an amazing scene, and I totally
Hmm.
ripped it off.
Yeah. I'm sure we could figure out what TV show it's from and then figure out what episode. But yeah, it's. I would not be surprised if there were subtitles or something for it. So yeah, it was that was a wonderful scene back in the day.
Still look it up on YouTube. Still
Yep.
holds up as one of the
Yes.
best.
Absolutely.
Her facial reactions, perfection.
Yes. Yes. And the Wedgie Me Wendy feels like Chucky, but with wedgies.
Honestly, when I wrote that, I had never like I've seen them all now. I haven't watched the
Hmm.
TV show, but I had never seen a Chucky movie up until that point. I knew who Chucky was. I feel like more of an inspiration because when I was writing it, I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's the film called Small Soldiers, where it's the toys get put in these super advanced chips and they're going to war with the other toys in this neighborhood. But there's a toy store that's like a very like an old school toy store, and that's the toy store I had in mind with that scene. And there's no wedgies in that film, and there's nothing like it was just that the setting was what I had in mind, and it was like these super
Hmm.
advanced toys and they end up like wreaking havoc and it was all this crazy stuff, but it's a watchable movie.
Yeah.
But that's the one I remember. It wasn't necessarily Chucky, it was definitely more
Hmm.
Small Soldiers
Okay.
oriented.
Yeah, and I've never seen Chucky movies either. I have no interest in it because that's not scary to me, and I love scary movies. So, just a doll, just
They're
kick him
funny,
across the
like
room.
finish like don't ignore the first three, watch everything that has Chucky in the title. That's when they're fun. Like Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky are like horror comedy where it's like it's not scary, but it is generally a funny movie.
Okay, maybe,
But it's
maybe.
supposed to be funny, not like
Right.
I'm trying to think of like just a bad movie, but they're fun. They're funny in a fun way.
Yeah. Okay.
But I
So,
agree with you. Not like I'll beat the crap out of a toy. Like,
yeah,
that's
just
why I was like she couldn't just be a toy.
yeah,
That's why I was like I she has to be something more.
yeah. I mean, you just fucking kick him across the room and you're done. So there's nothing
Exactly.
scary about it. So for the story, what was your writing process for it, and has it changed since then?
It's definitely changed since then because that process was really write apart, post it, and not really have a game plan on when I was gonna do the next part.
Mm,
And I would literally just be like, it would just be spur of the moment writing. I wouldn't and I still, I don't want to say I don't really edit them because I do generally look over and like re-examine stuff, but I don't do it as like enough. I don't know. It's hard to say because I don't want to say like I never like edit them or like there are ones that like I actually just changed the story the other day because I was like, wait a second, that makes sense in a story context, but this is a fetish story that does not make sense in this kind of story or does not work with this kind of story.
yeah.
But I would say my biggest thing that I learned from that one is to just like I don't want to be the like I remember being the person waiting for the next part, waiting for the next part, and not having a game plan. And now I'm like, no, no, no. I'm gonna have a game plan on what I'm writing and when I'm posting it.
Mm.
Like, like I've been doing this, and I started doing again just fan fictions because like I feel no one was doing these kind of fictions that I wanted to read, which is why now I'm not gonna say focused in fan fiction. I'm just like I'm taking a break from original ideas because original can be hard.
Yes.
But I was doing like the Star Wars saga, and I'm gonna do 3 episodes with 4 parts in each episode, and now I'm just like, all right, when this one gets to a certain amount of views, I'll post the next one. And then once that hits a certain amount of views, it'll give me time to have a next part written.
Mm.
But everyone in the community is at least aware because I think I'm pretty sure I posted. If not, this will be news for everyone. Is like around 10,000 views just so it gives me time to work on the next part and have another chapter ready.
Yeah. Hmm.
Because the I feel like at least for this kind of writing for the community, it's like this isn't the best. Like it doesn't come out good if it's forced, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Like I feel like you can kind of force other styles of writing. Like if you were just writing a novel for the in any other genre. I mean, I guess this isn't necessarily a genre because this can have any kind of genre, but if you're writing any other style where it's just like I'm writing a novel or a short story, you can kind of force parts of it because like you kind of have to at points, just to keep on track. Whereas like this is like if I'm not inspired to write this, it's just not gonna come out good. It's not gonna feel good. No one's gonna like it's gonna feel different.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean I think that's very accurate because this is uh, such a personal aspect of us. Um,
Hmm.
that
Sincerity. That's the word I think I
yes,
was looking for. It's
yes,
like it has to be sincere,
and
or it
and
just feels
genuine.
forced.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah. It's and especially since most of us don't make any money off of this, just a hobby.
exactly.
You want it to be as good as it can be, but yeah, so you don't want to force it. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like I've never seen anyone make like negative comments on at least none of my stories as far as I know. I don't think anyone has gotten like harsh comments, but I'm also like I feel like if you were to just force it, that's inviting that like, at the end of the day, everyone can at least tell your writing is sincere. Like
Hmm.
because you're not doing this for money, you're not doing this for notoriety. Like yes, like I've gotten now this is the most notoriety I've ever gotten for writing any of these stories as I am on a podcast, and that is wonderful because I never thought I'd make it this far, but here we are. But like at the end of the day, you're still doing it because like a love of the kink and the love of the craft. Like that's where the writing comes from. And at the end of the day, I feel everyone is at least sincere in their writing. And it's when you're not is when you're inviting like people can tell, and that's when people are going to be like, "Come on, man! Like, what are you
Yep.
doing?"
Yeah. Absolutely. Did the story evolve as you were writing it?
Um, it did in some ways, because like it took many parts for me to be okay including a male character at all,
Mm.
which I feel was like, and I know this is not everyone's cup of tea. For me, like I have no problem with certain male characters being in there, but it was like almost a hampering at a certain point where it's just like how many like just like have just a guy, just to have a guy in there is like kind of a pain in the neck where on like a forum that specifically meant like stories about women, so it just felt awkward to like have guys in there. But like those were little changes like that. Like there's a couple male characters who show up later on. There's a couple, you know things here. The major things that changed were just like the interlude stories, like because I feel it's like the first story arc, which is like the first 10 chapters or episodes, for where Jess meets Lo and they go and fight the mayor and all this crazy stuff. Like that was all like one pretty much coherent line in my head. It's like this is what I want to do, this is where I want to be, this is all, this is how I want the story to go. And then after that is where it kind of like it didn't morph because I didn't really have an idea. It was kind of like, flying by. Again, this is why they call it plotting or pantsing for those who are into writing in general. Is literally called pantsing because you're flying by the seat of your pants.
I did
And
not know that was a term.
that is a it's also called the gardener and the architect firm. So the idea is that you plant seeds and then you just write, like you don't have an outline, you just write and just it's a flow of consciousness, whereas an outliner or a plotter will have like here's a story beat, here's a story beat. And for this kind of writing, at least, I generally am a pantser, which I feel it really fits with the community,
Absolutely.
I feel.
Yes.
Where it
Yeah.
was just like, I'm just gonna sit, I'm gonna get in the mind space, and I'm just gonna write and see what happens. And I feel like, at least in the first 10 chapters, I had a general idea of where I was going. And then, like, I had no idea there's gonna be time travel. I think I just, like, it just came to me, and I was just like, let's just try it.
Yeah.
Which is what really helps with that kind of story is, like, everything can happen because of magic.
Exactly.
Like, I can, time travel, all this crazy stuff. Which is why I also felt it was like a cop out one for like to hide weak writing is just like if anything can happen, you can make it more exciting.
Absolutely. And that it really is one of the wonderful things about taking the real world and adding in magic, genies, goddesses, things of that nature. It basically removes any limits you might have been held back by. You're free to do as you wish, and you absolutely capitalize that with so many wild things happening, yet they all felt right at home in the context of the story, like time travel, like huge battles with between goddesses and insane wedgie wars, and it all felt right at home.
There was actually supposed to be more insane. I think it was like put in a poll many years ago, like in the middle of it. There was supposed to be a Renee and Victoria spinoff,
Yes, I
like a
remember
five
that.
chapter. And I got the first part down, and it just stopped flowing. I was like, the first part I don't think is bad. Like, it was like maybe it's a chapter and a half, and I was just like, this isn't a bad idea. You get to the point in some of these universes where you're like, I'm kind of just done with it for now. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think eventually I will post at I don't know if I will get finished just because it was one of those ideas that like, oh, I had a great idea and like, how do I make this work? And I haven't gotten to the point where I'm like, how do I make that work outside the first chapter?
Right.
And I will probably eventually post the first chapter, but there was basically this was supposed to come out concurrently while Lo and Jess are in college. This was supposed to be like what's going on at home, and there's a succubus comes to town and then starts a cult. It was gonna be
Mm.
wild, and then I was like, how does this work? I feel like Renee and Victoria, as much as I enjoy those characters. Oh, and if you actually, I take it back. This there is an inspiration of a real person who I don't know who was from a TV show in that series.
Okay.
Uh, this there was a television program called Finding Bigfoot,
Yep.
and the biologist on the show who apparently was crazy because the three Bigfoot hunters always looked at her like she was nuts was named Renee, and I kind of drew inspiration a little bit of look wise, but name and like that's why she's a paranormal hunter or monster hunter is because I was like, I wanted like this kind of she was like stuck in the mud kind of character who was ripe for picking on.
Mm. Okay.
But that was an inspiration I completely forgot about until I said her name out loud, where I was
Yeah.
just like, wait a second.
Hmm. I mean, if you do come up with the a good way to go with it and you're happy with it, I have no problem. I don't see any problem with it being released after after you originally intended it to come out. I think it would work really well. That sounds like a fantastic idea.
I think at the very least I'm gonna end up posting that first chapter. I may finish it. I might try and finish some of the I don't know if you have this problem or other writers have this problem where you're just like, oh, I'm just gonna have a bunch of stuff, like just a bunch of ongoing stuff, and I'm just like, this is a bit much. I should probably finish some of these before I start, like being like, hey, guess what? There's another project coming.
Yeah,
Like right
that
now, I got the Star Wars thing, which which is going strong. Like as I said, like around 10,000 views, and the next part will be posted just to give me time because that's more of a coherent plot. I started doing this, and I didn't know how the reaction I would get. Is I posted a few true stories, like stories from my life, without using real names, without giving away too many details that are identifiable. I was just like, let me give it a shot. Let me write like an experience I had in real life and see how that went. And people did enjoy it, so I wrote a couple of those. And there's two more at least that I can think of that I would like to write out. And then I just started posting because it was supposed to be for Halloween, but we passed that. I was doing Resident Evil stories because I felt there was no good stories in the community in that universe.
Hmm.
And like those are three relatively big things. Like one of them is definitely at least it has six more chapters coming, and one of them, it doesn't really have a timetable, but one of them I have two more ideas, two more real life inspirations for. And I'm like, I need to finish some of these before I go back. But I do think like the Renee and Victoria like mini series is something I'd go back to, and maybe it would give me the inspiration to come back to Trials of Befriending a Trickster for like another go around.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that was a huge thing for some of the big writers in the early days of Lucky Fetish, like Anthony Cherry and uh, Scrin Warrior, and some of them that they started all these big things. And I had that before I started writing in the community. But I realized after not writing anything for any of the many projects I started, I was too spread out. I had too many pans in the fire. I had to pull some back, so I was spreading myself too thin. I didn't have enough ideas for one story. They were all spread out between all of them, so I had to rein myself in, get through one thing at a time, and then go to the next thing.
I think that's what also helps me is that like I'm doing wildly different genres. Like everything I've done, at least in my opinion, and maybe people disagree with me, have at least been like wildly different from like Star Wars is nothing like Trials of Befriending a Trickster. Trials is like universe wise. Like yes, there's always wedgies in it. And there's always like this nerd archetype or like whatever. But like there's not like this is sci-fi. This is real life. This is autobiographical. This is horror, which is not really. It's really just the characters in a horror video game getting wedgies.
Hmm.
But that I think helps me the most is just having like these different like am I feeling like is today a sci-fi kind of day? All right, let's go work on the Star Wars project. It's today where I'm like, let me relive some of my personal greatest hits.
Yeah. Hmm. That's really insightful. I like that a lot. I, hmm.
I
Okay.
figure I have to stand out from the crowd. I got to be very insightful.
Oh, I've had lots of very insightful guests already, so you're blending right
And
in.
I will say, because I have listened on and off. I haven't listened to every episode. I will let you know though, the episode you guys did about the best stories in the community. I did go through on YouTube and like click on the dialogue and search up, being like, did they mention me? Am I okay? I got a mention. All right.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was very happy with that. I was just like, all right. I'm not saying I got to be everyone's favorite, but just like I got a mention. That's a great day for me right now.
Yeah, you had to make my list at least. So,
I'm,
what are you most proud of with this story?
that's a tough one. I'm proud that it went like it seemed to hold people's interest for 30 because like I know I was talking about where it's just like a lot of stories seem to end prematurely. Like 30 parts is a lot of parts, like a lot of episodes.
Yes.
Like that's a good amount of time asking people to invest in, and they're all like I've looked at them on DeviantArt. I haven't looked at, because you can't really see on Lucky Fetish the breakdown of like, how many views did this particular post have?
Right.
But whereas like on at least DeviantArt, I can see like, all right, they're all very healthy and they were very popularized and like still to this day, like I'll log in sometimes on DeviantArt and just be like, oh, someone new just favorited this part,
Mm-hmm.
someone new just favorited that one, and I'm like, all right, like I'm very proud of it in that regard. That at least for because we've all watched a TV show that overstayed its welcome. That was never my goal when writing. Like I know it's like in theory kind of hard to overstay your welcome in this kind of genre because like there's not that many options, and I feel like at times the community just like whatever you got, we're gonna take it because we have no other options to really go with. But I was very glad to see that like it stayed with people, and people did seem to enjoy it. Like I always got positive feedback from it,
Definitely.
which was gratifying to hear. Is like I'll go to Lucky Fetish and there'd be people commenting me like, "I'm so glad this is back. This is great."
Yeah,
That's what I would say that I'm the most proud of.
that it has that staying power. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So conversely, then, we kind of hit on this to some degree. Did you struggle with anything while writing it?
There were definitely chapters I struggled. I feel like it wasn't till they go back to college, and even that, it was the it gets a little bit much even for me with like the anything can happen. Like the last cup, like maybe not the big battle itself, but I believe it's Jess gets trapped in like one of Wanda's. Was it Wanda or was it? I forget like
Candy.
the two different goddesses. Which one? Oh
Candy.
yes, Candy.
Yep.
Candy's like dream world version, and she's running through high school like in her underwear, or I think it was her underwear, or maybe it
Mm-hmm.
was like a one piece.
It was her
It's been
underwear.
so long since was her under okay,
Yeah.
and it was like I was like, yes, parts like that where I was just like, I just want to get to the grand finale because in my mind I was like 30 parts. The 30 is a good line. Like I don't want to be like, and it ends at 27. I'm like, that gives people, you could break it down into three chunks of 10 chapters, and so I wanted to hit that 30, and there was a couple chapters in there where I'm just like, this is just it's too much, just a lot.
Mm. Okay. All right. I like that. So as I was reading through it again, it honestly felt like a trip down memory lane or a time capsule of sorts with how reminiscent of old stories it is. Like it made me very nostalgic. Stories back then were wild and really anything could happen. Whereas today, real world realism takes center focus and they're very grounded. And I think having this story contrasting with those gritty and grounded stories was super refreshing. Were you looking to capture a specific tone?
I was definitely looking for like almost like a not slapstick per se, but just like everything felt like there's a couple stories I read and I forget because again, you read so many and like sometimes they have like there's more than a couple out there that just have like a name as a title and like that's fine, but they do kind of blend together where I'm just like, is this one that one or is this one I was thinking of?
Mm-hmm.
Like and there was a couple that I felt like had these like very heavy tones where it was just like very like oh my God, these wedgies made us realize that we love each other and like, there was I forget what one. There was a couple like that where it
There's
felt
a
like they were
bunch
very
like
heavy
that.
and there's a bunch like that, but like I was like, I don't want that. I want it to be fun. Like fun and
Okay.
generally funny.
Yeah.
Like I don't want it to be like, oh, this is a depressing wedgie. Like I don't think like that should be like a goal to have being like a sad moment and then just like someone's yanking on somebody's underwear. Like I felt that was a little bit like all right, I was trying to go for that kind of tone and focus of just being like you're coming for a wild adventure almost. Like who knows what's gonna happen? Something crazy is gonna happen. There'll be wedgies. There'll be other kinks. That's another thing that I've noticed more. I feel is like some people don't incorporate other stuff into their like. Some wedgie fictions are just wedgies and that's it. Like there's no pantsings, there's no swirlies, there's no, you know, ripping of clothes. Like there's nothing else, and I feel like for me that just doesn't work as well.
Huh.
Where I feel like sometimes the tone can just be uh, like the wedgie almost feels forced. Where it's just like, oh, you could have pantsed them, and it would have been just a better scene.
Hmm.
Which is why like I try and incorporate as much of that as possible. But I kind of rambled there for a second. I'm sorry. I lost it.
Huh. Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. It doesn't really make sense if you're trying to write characters that feel real, where
Yes, I
the
didn't want it to be
only
too
thing,
somber.
yeah,
But yeah, so
okay, um, yeah, that's it. Definitely comes across very well what your intentions with it, and the title itself, yeah, like there are a lot of the name, one of the names of the characters, or two of the names of the characters, is the title of the story. So Trials of Befriending a Trickster definitely sticks out quite a bit, and it sounds like a TV show in a way.
that's kind of what I was going for. Where like every part is an episode in a TV show,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's I didn't really do the monster of the week. Like I probably could have in a couple of like chapters just to kill some time, being like they'll deal with a problem that's totally unrelated to the main plot. But generally, I tried to do like here's an overarching story. We're building up to something, and it's like a TV show, and not like there has to be a cliffhanger at the end of every episode, but there needs to be that like that little tease that like there's a reason to come back. Like we're not
Uh-huh.
done here. Like there's more to this story to come.
Yeah. Hmm. One thing I wish had been expanded on is the actual wedgies. A lot of them happen very fast, even ones that seem like they should take longer, like the bouncing wedgie Low gives Carol.
You are 100% right. That was, I think, one of the first when I posted the first part. Like there was a couple comments of like this, it's good. You have a good framework, but like that and not just that. This was another. I got this request. I think more than even describing the wedgies is to describe like the fabric of the underwear, and I'm just like, there was like a good 5 or 6 people who like that was what their focus was, and I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna say cotton a lot, but like, yeah, I noticed that as well,
Hmm.
looking back on it, where I'm just like, because now it's just like I feel like I've gotten stronger. Where like, yes, maybe I use the same terms over and over again, because like, how many different ways can you describe the feeling?
Yeah.
But at least I will describe it, and it goes on for more than like, up 10 seconds. Here we go.
Yeah. But in the same vein, the sheer variety of wedgies, types of underwear, bullying tactics that you included is incredible, and it provides something for every reader to enjoy, thereby broadening the appeal. And I think that's a big reason why you got so much response to it.
That's something that I noticed that like, and this was a thing from between like other stories and videos specifically, because like for a while there, when I started, like anytime you'd see like a YouTube video with a girl getting a wedgie, it would always be a thong, and I'm like, that's not what I enjoy. Like that's not like if it's my perfect wedgie scenario, that's not gonna be in there. Or at least that's not gonna be in there as often. Like I'll use it and it will pop out, it's never my go-to, so I would
I
always try
agree.
and do like different styles with different colors because I'm someone who's like, no, it's got to be fun, it's got to be vibrant. Like this is underwear. Like you should always like try and have like colorful patterns or embarrassing patterns or cartoons or
Hmm.
just bright colors. And the different varieties of wedges too, because I realize like how many times can you do a normal or a hanging before you're just like or an atomic before you're just like all right, is this going to be an atomic every episode? It kind of like, where's the fun in that?
Yeah. And you have
But that's
magic
also
to work
why I
with.
used exactly. But that's the reason why I did these other bullying tactics, and that's why they still reappear. It's because like, how many times can we make wedgies the central focus, and it doesn't feel like forced? Where it's like it doesn't like pulling the reader out, kind of
Hmm.
in a way where you
Yeah.
just like, oh, in this scene, it would have been more natural to not have a wedgie, but we need to get one in. That's why I appreciate like, not that they're my favorites, but like M Dodo has the thing at the bottom where it's just like, here's the kinks or fetishes that are in these stories, so you can pick and choose which ones you're in, but not every single one has a wedgie, even though they're primarily wedgie stories.
Hmm. Interesting.
Which now I've started doing myself. We're at the bottom well, I was doing it and then I stopped. I would put in like what to expect, bullying tactic wise at the end, and like, and that's another one where it's just like who's doing what. Because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, if I just did wedgies, it would literally just be like two girls giving each other wedgies for 30 chapters, and like, yes, that happens regardless, but there's other stuff going on. Like there's other pranks. There's
Yep.
always like Cleopatra takes their pants,
Mm-hmm.
fucking all, there's other stuff going on that makes you go like, okay, these, it's not just wedges. Like I'm sure at least it happened once where there's only one wedgie in a chapter. Like that's not a negative necessarily,
No.
even though this is primarily what people are looking for. But if it helps the story flow better, I'd rather have fewer wedgies and more of something else just to, for the story aspect, because then it makes the wedgies better if the story is better.
Absolutely. And the less you have, the more you cherish and enjoy the ones that are there.
Exactly.
And it makes sense since it's a story about a trickster goddess and trickster goddesses that they would do more than just give wedgies.
Hmm.
It wouldn't make sense otherwise. And
Exactly.
it seems like there are rules around what Lo can do. And that's something I really appreciate because it helps keep consistency with the character and her abilities. Did you actually figure out how her magic works, or was it more of a figure it out as you go sort of thing?
It was kind of a figure it out as you go, but I also used the logic of like, if hypothetically in the real world there was a trickster god or goddess who had that kind of sense of humor, how in the world would anyone be able to get two questions across to figure out how like it's one of those where it's just like it's magic, but it's a magic on a level that human beings will not understand. So I'm like, I don't necessarily have to explain every detail of how the magic works. Because in my head, it was just like, Lo is virtually all powerful, except for when she's dealing with her sisters, and she can't erase mine. Like, you can't mess with a human's memory because that is bad, just in general. But also, like, if she's gonna, like, if she meets Wanda or she meets Candy, they're stronger than her because they're her older sisters. So that's why her powers seem to always get nerfed
Mm,
whenever they show up.
yeah. Hmm. Okay.
Because in theory, she does do almost everything, like with the exception of
Mm-hmm.
wiping Renee's memory. She travels through time. She snaps her fingers and makes things happen. She creates a doll that's then replaced by her evil sister. Like all this stuff happens. And in my mind, I don't think like even if it was real, a scientist would never be able to be like, ah, here's how the magic system worked, or like it didn't work because in my mind none of the human characters were ever going to get true magical abilities. Like yes, I know there was the book that the mayor finds that can like zap Lo's powers, but it
Right.
wasn't really going to give her the powers. It was just going to give the book the powers, and she could read the book to then steal the power, use the powers via the book. It was
Yeah.
kind of like that, where I never really truly figured out a magic system because to me the magic was just kind of like almost like MacGuffin, where it's just like it's just the storytelling element to get to the next portions.
Okay. Well, you used it in very unique and creative ways. You varied it constantly, so I think it was really well
I
done.
appreciate that.
And with time travel, I absolutely love that section, especially how you use it to go back to super famous women. I haven't really seen that done anywhere else. And the fact that you have Jess and Lo struggle instead of just having them wedgie those famous women is super unique and incredible.
That was kind of my idea, where I'm just like, I don't think anybody's done this, and I know I said it earlier, so maybe I sound like a hypocrite, where I'm just like, I don't like it. Like none of these people who I wrote about would it will like they're long since passed away, so I don't necessarily feel it's as weird as like if it was someone alive today, like if I was writing it and Lowen and Jess visit, a famous actress today. I just, Scarlett Johansson. Like I feel like that would be weird. But meeting like Cleopatra's been dead for 2,000 years, and in reality, like the Cleopatra I described is clearly never going to be the Cleopatra that existed. So I don't. It doesn't feel as weird to me if that makes sense. Like I have to justify it in my own brain as to why it's okay to write about these women who were real versus like why I can't do or why I was coming down on people writing about women alive today.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, I felt that no one had really done like I feel like there had been time-stopping stories, and I
Yes.
actually was toying around with something like that, but no one had done true time travel outside of maybe, well, I guess my own Doctor Who uh, fan fictions, and even then, those I feel were very few and far between. So I felt like this would be a nice, just a way to change things up,
Yeah.
because I felt like they needed to get out of dealing with the town like they dealt with the mayor. Let them take a break. It wasn't a long break. It was like 5 chapters, I think, because they only did Joan of Arc, I think, Amelia Earhart, Marilyn Monroe, and Cleopatra got a two-parter. So like 5 chapters. So it wasn't anything crazy, but it was enough of a different taste that I feel like that I feel that might be one of the stronger sections. Like for me looking back on like okay that was good, that was clever, that was not only good, that was clever. Like
Hmm.
I feel like I was clever in thinking of like, oh, this is a nice change of pace, a palate cleanser almost out of like these big events, and now we're going like let's just do like a little road trip.
Yeah. Yeah. That absolutely. It was. You definitely accomplished that. I think it comes across. Now, is there a reason why Lo always wears granny panties? Yeah, I really love that. Like, she's so used to being in charge of the situation, she doesn't even think she'll get retribution, so she wears what's comfortable. But I'm curious if there's some reason
Exactly.
you have. Okay, it was that.
that, that was it, and I was just like
Okay.
she's painted as this uber hot, like I think I'd say that she's like 6 foot one, 6 foot or 6 foot
Mm-hmm.
one, hot hair, redhead, like a very attractive woman. And I feel it would have been like I wanted to play it up almost for like not like wear what's comfortable, but also like it's a little funny that like this super hot girl is wearing like you know underwear from a pack. Like she's wearing like Hanes, like you'd buy like a 5 pack and like that's what she wears.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you wouldn't expect like this super hot woman to be wearing that. Like you'd expect it like, oh, a thong or boy shorts or, a G string or whatever, and having it be like briefs. To me, it was just like that makes the gag of her getting eventually wedgies a little bit funnier, which that was, I think, something I tried to hold off on for a while and I just gave up. I tried it again with inspiration where I was gonna try and go the entire thing without the character of Meg getting a wedgie, and I was like, I'm just gonna make sure it's Natalia's the one who does it, or Natalie's not the one who gives it to her till the very end. So it's like a friendship thing. But there's no way we're gonna make it through 14 parts of someone not getting a wedgie in a wedgie fiction.
Yeah, I think you did it really well. I think you waited just long enough. And it was like it was like a finally she's fine. It was like the anticipation was building up, and the payoff was fantastic.
I feel what I also did was like, even though once it happened, she still wasn't always a target.
Right.
Like it happened again, but it didn't happen with as much frequency as like Renee or Victoria or Jess. It was like Lowe's gonna get him, but just not as often as everybody else, so it's still special.
Yeah, and it really almost exclusively happened because of her more powerful sisters. So it makes
Yes,
sense why.
like that, and I think Jess gives her one as like revenge after they land in like the Cleopatra
Right.
desert.
Yeah, and there was the one with where just forbids her to use her powers against the
Oh yes,
people,
yes, yes. She's like,
but
listen, we're at college. I don't
yeah.
want, and then literally, like, here's how you can tell I was making things up as I go. Is literally the next chapter. Jess is like, fine, just go do whatever you want now. You've complained enough about it. Go handle this. And then Lois just like, done and done. Snaps her fingers and goes and bullies the bully.
Yeah, but I think it works really well, and the way you put it in. Do you have a favorite character?
It's so tough because like part of me is like Renee might be it just because Renee got her own I think it was for one of Hans's contests. It was one of the Halloween specials. Renee got her own Halloween special, But I'm like, but Lo is in all parts. Jess is like it's probably either Lo or Renee, just because like I don't know why Renee just always felt like just a good person to pick on, and Lo is just this chaotic energy that like it happens to enough that like it's still something special about it, but she's also like well written enough, or in my opinion well written enough, that like I enjoy going back and reading like what did Lo say in this situation, then I go, oh, that was pretty, that's like I feel like those are the characters that I think of the most in terms of like who I enjoyed writing the most in the series.
Yeah. Yeah, it is tough because so many of the characters do sort of share the same amount of screen time. So you don't. I mean, Lo and Jess obviously are the ones focused on the most, but
Mm.
you give almost all of your characters uh, important aspects of the story, and they all do major things to some degree. I think if I had to choose one, it would be Victoria. Um, I think
Victoria's a good one.
yeah, you build her up as a bully so well, and then have her come crashing down. It was great, and showing a little bit of that insight into her with the dynamic between her and her aunt was I thought that was really good.
Those were some good scenes to write. Like I remember being like, this is like I'm. It was nice to just because I feel like that was a thing too, that a lot of people would just have like a generic bully, and you didn't really know the bully beside outside of a physical description. I was like, you know, her friends. I was like, I've got these characters. I got no. Like you're here for one episode and then you're out.
Yeah,
But like Victoria herself, I was just like, you're good enough and close enough that like, because in my mind, it was always like a pairing situation to make the teams even, where it's just like Lo, like the first 10 chapters, Lo's evil opposite, evil nemesis in that is the mayor, and then Jess needs one, so we give, so she has Victoria to even the playing field a little bit.
yeah,
And then they even out in the next chapter by having, Renee join the team, but then they get their evil, goddess in Wanda, and then we go to college and everything hits the fan.
yeah, yeah. There's just basically just a lot to appreciate about this story.
I'm glad that like because I never thought that it would be like enough to be like because like I know Hans had one at one point where he was interviewing people, and then I saw like you have this one, and I was like, oh, I wonder, not like, like, oh, I deserve to be, but like one of those I'm wondering like, I wonder if I'm like, maybe, I put off enough output, maybe, they'll be like, hey, you wanna have a guest episode?
Yeah, you definitely accomplished it. I mean, we've been talking about the story for almost an hour and a half, so I think
Yes.
there's quite a bit here to appreciate and love about it. Um, is there anything you're hoping readers pick up on going forward?
I don't know if there's anything. That's a good one. Like, I mean, I would love to hear that like it inspired other people to write like certain ideas because like I do feel like there are certain ideas that I didn't necessarily flush out that other people would be better at flushing out. Like, but is there something to pick up on? I don't actually know. Like, I feel like I've always just left little tidbits of things from like things I enjoy, but nothing that's like, oh, I hope they realize this or anything like that. I just hope people enjoy it. Like, I mean, clearly it's been enjoyable enough that, here I am on the best book club.
Yeah.
But
Well, so what about? Do you think there's anything that readers are overlooking?
that's a good question. Like, and it's a weird thing because like I feel like it has all these views, and then like I think back to it, and I'm just like, did I feel like, not even like a good job comment, just like I feel like I haven't talked to that many people. Like, there's one other person in the community who I talked to a little bit about it, and they were just like, "This is my favorite part. This is my favorite character," and I'm like, "Thanks." Like, I don't know if there's anything that's really missed. I mean, people could, tell me I'm like, start talking to me about it, and then I'd be like, "What? You missed this entire look? There's a whole subplot here. What do you mean you didn't realize that's what's going on here?" Uh, I don't, I don't know if I ever there was supposed to be like a couple back doors put in to like introduce more evil sisters. Like, I don't remember if I ever closed the loop on like how Cleopatra got the time stopping necklace or not. I don't remember if I just gave that to Wanda to be like, I'm nearing the end of what I can write, at least for now. So let me close that loop to explain why Cleopatra has a magical necklace, or if I was, because I think my original plan was that was going to introduce another evil sister.
Okay.
There was a couple little things like that that were just sprinkling in to like hint that like, oh, there's another evil one out there, because I think I did. I said there was like 11 evil sisters or 11
Hmm.
sets of twins, and all the evil male trickster twins got locked up, and then only the sisters remained, or
Yeah.
something along those lines. But besides that, I don't. I think, as far as I know, there's nothing to be missed, or I just do hope everyone enjoys it.
Hmm. Okay. While you were writing it, did anything surprise you?
In terms of like reaction, or in terms of like discovering along the way as I was writing.
Either.
Uh, I think what surprised me was I didn't originally intend for Victoria to become like a part of the crew. Like Victoria, in my mind, like Victoria and Mare Shelley were originally like that was it. Once they hit episode 10 and they were done, they were supposed to be done. And then I realized I was bringing in Wanda, and I was like, Wanda needs to have a crew. And I guess we're deep enough long that no one's gonna be mad if I'm like, and here's returning villains.
Yeah.
That was a big one. I remember just being like, oh, yeah, she's. I mean, I'll bring them back, and then I didn't think I was gonna have them become like friendly. So doing that was actually like kind of a nice change, because I feel it's done a lot where like, oh my God, the bully and the nerd became friends, but I feel like I like the way like I don't want to toot my own horn or anything like that, but like I like the way I did it versus the way I've seen it written in other places,
Okay.
where it's just like, and now you've seen them interact enough, and now that they've become friends, because you've seen like how much of a terrible person her aunt is to her, that she's kind of tired of it, and her friends abandoned her, due to her, like she's like, I made the wrong decision on trying to bully you that day, and you got revenge, and my other friends now won't talk to me, and I was very mean to you, so I apologize, and here we go with all this.
Yeah. It was very earned, I think.
Yeah, that's the term, where I felt like it was very earned to do that to Victoria, but that wasn't originally the plan.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, once you get outside like the time travel stuff, and even then I feel like I was kind of like guessing on where they were going to go next, just because that was such a story of the week, where it was just like, even though I probably posted it over the course of months, but like, here's, they're going to meet this character, and then they're going to go here and meet this character. Like, outside of that, once they get back, everything like felt like kind of like Discovery, where it was just like, all right, what's going to happen next?
Yeah. Hmm. Okay. So, to take a broad look at this story, what do you feel sets it apart and your work apart from others?
I feel like the very generic like answer is length, just because like how many stories really do hit 30 parts, but I feel like that's a cop out answer. I'm gonna say, I feel like, because I could see the argument to be made looking back on it, like I feel Jess is not necessarily written as the best of my abilities now could have been, but I do think like Renee and Victor, like my side characters, I feel stand out relatively well, and it does kind of have this very like, these feel like real relationships between, like, at least to me, and again, someone could tell me I'm wrong, but I think it stands out, and like these side characters who really shouldn't feel super important. Like Renee's purpose, besides to be good in one basketball game, is to
Hmm.
get picked on. Like feels important to the plot. Like Victoria, whose purpose is to be a bully who then becomes a friend, like feels important to the plot. Where in I feel like if someone else would have written the story, they wouldn't necessarily feel that way.
Okay, I like that. And so now with my one segment on this show, when discussing realism in stories, I have a question I like to pose to people. Out of the four Earths I'm about to describe, which do you believe Trials of Befriending a Trickster falls under? So I have
Mhm.
realistic Earth, where Earth is normal as we live it every day. Alternate Earth, where Earth is changed to some degree, mainly focusing on wedgies. Idealistic Earth, where Earth is changed to fit the desires of the wedgie community or some aspect of it, depending on the writer. Or fantastical Earth, where Earth is changed to be unrecognizable, like Lord of the Rings and Dungeons and Dragons. And it can also be a mix of those four, change between them, or be none at all and be something entirely different.
I feel it would be like I feel like at least part of it has to be the fantastical because like it is godlike powers, but then what was option number two called again?
Alternate
Uh,
Earth.
Alternate Earths, where it's I feel it's like that because I feel like at no I feel it's like a combination of two because fantastical because magic and magic and time travel and all this wacky stuff. But I also feel it's the alternate where it's focused around wedgies because at no point does anyone go like, "Can you do anything else?" Like it's been 30, like let's say every episode was a day, it's 30 days every single day for 30 days. Like you can't do anything else besides give wedgies. So I
Yeah,
feel like it's a combination of those two. Even like as much as I think it's a much more realistic story that I wrote, Inspiration, I feel like even that's still going to be alternate. Like I don't think I've written any besides like my true stories. Like I don't think there's anything that would fit like the first category of realistic Earth. Just
yeah.
because at no point does someone go like, "All right, stop!" Like what do you like?
Yeah. I think that's a good uh, I think that's a good way to describe it. I think that works very well for it. Uh, so, as a sort of a meta question on the community as a whole, in what ways do you feel that writing has evolved in the community? Looking at the original Wedgie Girls website, moving to Lucky Fetish, DeviantArt, all these other platforms we're on now.
I feel like the fiction stories have gotten so much better. Like just in terms of quality, in terms of just like finishing stories, in terms of just like collaboration between writers. Like that's insane when like you look back on like the original forums, like it felt like there was the collaboration. Like you'd have maybe two people role playing and that was it. So it feels like the fiction section has like gone up leaps and bounds from what it was. But then on like the inverse, I feel like the true stories section has kind of like true stories have kind of like disappeared
Hmm.
almost because like and you always had that influx of like clearly bullshit stories that people were posting true stories for reasons beyond. I'm like just put it in fiction. Like this is clearly made up.
Yeah.
Like like and there's always the one other commenter who's like, "Oh, that's so hot, it's amazing," and it's like it's clearly fake. Like, but I think that's the biggest thing that at least I've noticed because I feel like for a while it felt like you get a good amount of true stories. You'd have people like have a build up where they'd be like, "Here's five true stories in one post," and now I posted my true stories just because it was like a nice change of pace and a writing exercise for me. But I feel like Lucky Fetish very rarely do you see them now. In DeviantArt, it's almost like I don't think I've ever seen one that at least I consider true. And like maybe people don't consider mine true and they are, but like I don't think there's been many true stories posted there just because DeviantArt lends itself to fiction so well. So I feel
Hmm.
like while we've gone in great leaps and bounds in the fiction section, the true story section has just kind of died off. And that's neither here nor there. Like I can't say if that's a negative or positive. Like because sometimes true story is literally just like a paragraph, and it's just like, oh well, wasn't that fun? But then other times, they're more in depth where there's some true stories you read and you're like, all right, that rings true, that sounds true. I believe this person, and that's a good story.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's just a product of uh, wedgies not really being very common in real life, and so you just really don't get many actual true stories.
I
But
feel like almost social media's taken over where it's just like you won't get true
yes,
stories, but you'll have all these real videos, and you're just like, there's no like there's like all these different videos you see and like a bunch of them like these are clearly like not like don't get me wrong, there's always some that are scripted, but like not every single one is scripted, and then like you're like no one in the community is having even like one moment ever about this. Like
yeah,
that's what like surprised me the most is I posted one of my true stories and someone commented just being like, man, how are you so lucky to have this happen to you, and there's like four true stories, and I'm like, is not everyone like this where there's like you have like, I'm not saying everyone has to share them, but like I figured like everyone at least had a couple like or at least one good true story, but like no one posts them. And I get like there could be a varied degrees and reasons why, and it's not I can't be like how dare people not do that. But like it just feels weird to be like I feel like for a while true stories was like kind of the bread and butter of the community, and now it's just like no. Now it's fiction. True stories, if you find one good one every few months, you're lucky.
yeah. Which is kind of funny that the way fictional true stories are now reflects how content in general was way back in the day.
Exactly.
Hmm. Okay. How would you define something having a legacy or impact?
How would I define? So you mean just like how I would define like it? Hmm. I mean, if it has staying power, and like I'm glad that like my story seems to have had staying power. That like I didn't like in all honesty, like my like once I was finished with trials, I was like, okay, this is gonna probably be forgotten. So now I need to write like that's why I was like I think I wrote it, and now I feel stupid writing it because we're talking about trials. But I was like when I wrote inspiration, I think I put like this is supposed to be my magnum opus, and I'm just like looking back, I'm like, well, that's a stupid thing to say. Like it's the second big story you've ever written, and like you want this one to be the one that everyone like is like this is when he was great.
Okay. So, what sort of legacy do you believe Trials has had, and what would you like it to have in the future?
I would like it to like I feel like and we've gotten better. Like there are definitely more stories than just like true to life, like modern day. Like I do appreciate like I would like it to maybe inspire some people to write like some more like there are many genres of fiction that you could include wedgies in. So like you know we could, I hope it does inspire someone to write something that's not just like it was a college dorm room and like you have all these true stories and they're all just like uh kids who are 18 specifically where the or I say kids but like 18-year-olds specifically or college dorm room or a workplace, and it's just like we can do the fantastical, like it's fiction. You can go and do anything, go anywhere, like embrace it, use it to your advantage. Like that's kind of what I did where I feel like yes, is Trials Befriending the Trickster the greatest thing ever written? No, sadly not. It is not. But I used the ability, the fact that like I can make a story where it goes and does anything to my advantage, where I feel a lot of people don't, and they just stick with like it was the school, like college, like locker room, and this one gets a wedgie and shoved in a locker, and it's just like, well, that's adorable, and that can be well written, like that can be great, but like you have all these other things to draw from,
Hmm.
like you can go anywhere, do anything in fiction. We don't have to be in a school library. We don't have to be in a workplace locker room. You can be on a spaceship. You could be in a castle. You could be in a, just do all these crazy things. And I feel a lot of people just stick with real life. And I can't tell if that's like a case of a lot of people not having access to true, because like with the absence of true stories, there's a lot of like realistic quote unquote stories? Is it because like there's really no true anymore, and that's why people are embracing the like, oh, if I'm gonna write a story, it can't be too fantastic. I want to keep it grounded. But I feel like we people should embrace the weirdness that you can get into with fiction, if
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, going off of that, are there any new areas or topics we can move into with our content, or is there anything you'd like to see be created?
Specifically, see, it's tough because like I feel for me, if it's just like if there's something I want to see content in, at this point I feel comfortable enough to create it myself, in all honesty. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't seeing that much Resident Evil stuff. I wrote a bunch of Resident Evil stories and I'll be posting them slowly throughout the year or the rest of the year. I didn't see really much Star Wars stuff that interests me. I did Star Wars. I did like The Last of Us 2. You know, I there was like I don't think there was any like I think there was like one wedgie story for that, and I was just like I'm gonna do a one shot. Fuck, you know, screw it. I did it for like other video games. Like I feel like that's a section where like the more creative writers have stayed out of for some reason. Like don't get me wrong, there's always like an M Dodo or other ones who have like gone into like a fan fiction route and written very good stories, but I feel like it's either superheroes or very rarely like maybe a couple popular TV shows. But like there's so many options that like I would love to see more variety of fan fiction even if people don't want to like embrace fiction of itself.
Hmm.
Like if you don't like, oh, I would love to see more sci-fi wedgies, but it's like if it has to just be a fan fiction story, great. Then do fan fiction.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? Like just to get us something that's not just regular real life. Like if it has to be Star Trek version or Star Wars or you know Halo or whatever. You know, I don't know how you do Halo. That just came to mind, but I think someone did do a Cortana one at one point, which was a little. I was like, this is interesting. Like, I know Halo, that's why I find this interesting more than like I think this is going to be a good wedgie story.
Right. Hmm.
But I would love to see people embrace more of like the more outsider or the more just go a little bit crazy with it,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term. Like
Yeah.
even if it's just in fan fiction, go a little bit crazy. Pick a show or a TV show or a movie or a video game that isn't like the top bestseller of the year. You know, like pick something that's like is interest to you, but not necessarily like because I feel like that's the ones where I find sometimes the best stuff is like the niche stuff where it's just like I wouldn't expect like to you know someone wrote I believe it was a Knights of the Republic Star Wars story that had like a wedgie and I was like this is really well written or like Life is Strange like that there was a couple good ones for that which I would love to do that series myself but like I would love to see more of that and like if Trials can inspire more people to do you know outside you know the box ideas I would love it.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. So, in this niche community, get more niche.
Kinda like I feel it helps makes your story stand out. Like if you
Yeah.
like how many stories have you read that takes place in a school,
Oh,
you know, and it's to, like whether it be a high school where everyone's 18 or it's a college, you know. And again, as long as everyone's of age, like that's the important part. Like
right.
let's when I mean school, I just mean like, you know, everyone's 18 because legally it feels better for everyone if we just keep it that way. But like how many stories have you read with that? Where it's just like, oh, it's in a school hallway. That one gets that one a wedgie, and then they go on wedgie adventures where it's just more school.
Yeah.
And
It's
again, there's nothing wrong with that, and it can be written so well. But when everyone is doing it, it doesn't stand out. That's why the like dulling a knife, like Hans and I think you said Shadow did like it was dulling a knife, and then the
Flame over
flame over
darkness.
darkness.
Yep.
Yes, those stand out because those are in two very distinct worlds. That, like they don't feel like anything you've written, like you've read before in the community. Like you can get maybe vibes from different like other things that aren't like fetish related. Like Flame Over Darkness reminds me of like Skyrim
Yeah.
Dulling a Knife reminds me of like Fallout and like those are two great games, but you know what, they don't have wedgies, which is why these feel unique within the community. Because like, yeah, there's a couple Fallout ones. There are surprisingly a more amount of like Skyrim ones, but there's very few that are very well written.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that's lost a lot. Is people are just like, no, it has to be like the it's in the whole like, oh, there was the old series, the May and Connie series by, what was it, Puppy Dog did those,
Mm-hmm.
I believe.
Yes.
The
Yes.
first one where May, like the girls like in the dorm room writing about the bully come, like they're making fun of the trope,
Yep.
but literally that's what it is like they're in a dorm room, they're college students, bully comes in, wedges her, and that's the story. Like that's
Yeah.
like it can be well done, but it's hard to stand out.
Yeah. It's because of the oversaturation.
Exactly.
Okay. Do you have a message for the community at large?
Not real. Like I don't. This like who like who's ever commenting on fucking people's social media needs to stop. Like
Yeah.
those like if that would be like that, if that's the one message I can get through, like I think that guy finally left Twitter, but there was that guy who every day was just every celebrity, just, and it's just like, dude, leave them alone. Like that's the only message that I will ever share. Like, yeah, read my stuff, that'd be great. But if you could stop doing that, maybe we could get some like legit mentions once in a while. Maybe a
Yeah.
couple actual ones once in a while. Like that's been the real killer, is just like people like that kind of ruining like not the fiction aspect, because like listen, at the end of the day, fiction, like we're not gonna bother real people because you're writing fictional stories, but like those people bring the community as a whole down.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, I like it. So, at the end of episode 30, you say you're not done with Trials. Do you have any plans to continue the story?
I've had ideas. It hasn't been worked on as I've jumped around a lot. It's definitely not done. Like I think that like in my original planning, it was going to go 30 parts, hiatus, another 30. I think I'll probably eventually will get to that other 30. I think it's just one of those where I need like the time and I need the spark of inspiration to hit that, because I kind of, again, it's one of those, as I was saying earlier, it's once you go to the, once you go so big, you need to go somewhere new. And like, yes, I'm going to start off small again, but where would I go? I'm not 100%. I do think eventually there'll be more. I can't like put a timetable on it just because I haven't actually started it.
Right. Okay. Well, I guess that's just something to keep in mind for fans and readers. Keep an eye out, but don't expect anything.
Yeah, let me finish what I got currently, and then maybe like if it's gonna happen, people know, because like I'll announce that, like, listen, I'm gonna do this. I got a part working on it. Like I haven't actually thought of it so long until you invited me on the show. Like I hadn't, like, occasionally I'd go back and read it, or like if I saw someone had like favorited it on DeviantArt, I'd go back and like click on the chapter, but I haven't like actually thought about it in a while, just because I've had all these other projects both in the community and outside of it that I hadn't actually like, because again, it's always like there's always been ideas of like where I would go, but nothing on paper where I've like not again had the inspiration to do it. And now I'm like, you know what? And I hadn't thought about it, but I could definitely see like this maybe kickstarting some ideas getting written down, and then eventually, you know, season 2 or whatever you want to call it comes out.
Okay. Nice. Is there anything we haven't touched on that you'd like to discuss?
I mean, no, I honestly I didn't know how I'd feel about doing the show. Like I nervous, I don't know, worried maybe, just because like I'm like, what if everyone recognizes my voice, and then like the next day I get all these like, you were on this show about this particular kink, and I'm just like, this has been very like overall like a positive experience. So like I can't think of anything really that like we haven't touched on for that story. Like I mean, are there like I'm open? Like, listen, I would love to be back at some point. but like maybe sparingly, just because I'm like I need to be special. I need to come come back and discuss things on a not regular basis so people can look forward to my showing up. But like I've never talked about my work at length like this, so I almost want to be like, let's talk about my next story. Let's keep going. Like, this has been kind
Okay.
of exciting for me.
That's awesome. I love to hear it. I'll definitely have to bring you back for potentially another one of your stories or a story that you really enjoy. Do you have anything that you'd like to promote?
I mean, not really. Like, I just have what I've been posting on DeviantArt, which I feel like anyone listening probably has already like been to. But I mean, I again, I wish I had like a nice like post schedule where I could just be like, up, every week or every 2 weeks, here's a new post. But it's like I just go in spurts where I'll like put 3 things up 2 days in a row, and then I won't post again for like 2 months, and then I'll be like, oh, here's the new parts and stuff. But like, I guess just my DeviantArt page in general. Like,
Hmm.
again, favorites and comments and views are always important and make me feel nice. So that's really
Absolutely.
it.
Okay. All right. Wow. There you have it. It's a wonderful discussion of this modern hit. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. If there are any topics, stories, ideas, etc., that you'd like to hear me discuss, or if you'd like to come on for an episode, leave a comment or send me a message on DeviantArt or Lucky Fetish as New Fatora. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Best Book Club.